From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Hey, good morning, security gang. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast. It's great to be with all of y'all today. I'm obviously not in the studio. Had to travel this week. Just today, thankfully. So we're going to do the show from the Big Apple, but we've got a lot to talk about today. So we're going to get right into the show this morning because obviously, being that I travel, whenever I travel, it's harder to get good espresso. It really is. And I can't get Starbucks. Like, I really can't. It's horrible. It's just not good. So either way, coffee cup cheers to everyone having a drink with us this morning, whatever your choice of beverage is. I hope you're enjoying it and savoring it this morning. I'm looking forward to my first just here shortly after we finish this call and I get a real coffee shop espresso. Let's get into the stories because we have a lot to talk about. Here we go.
There is a security breach.
Mark Spencer, the iconic British retailer, scrambling to restore services impacted by a cybersecurity incident that occurred over the Easter holiday, and what a time for it to happen. While the company's online services remain operational, the incident did impact certain store operations, causing some delays and frustration among some of their customers. So the company said it's engaging with essentially the normal, typical stuff we see. They're engaging with experts. They've discovered an incident. They're now looking at it. However, some issues had some business impact here. So their systems are now back online, according to reports. However, they're still experiencing some technical difficulties with the click and collect service from the stores. Please do not travel to a store unless you've been notified via email from us. And they also are expressing their apologies. They haven't shared any details into the incident they were facing, but various disruptions might look this. I mean, this is always ransomware, right? It's always ransomware. Every single time it's ransomware. The question is how, what, was it their ransomware? Was it someone else's ransomware? It just, those all depend. So, and what I mean by someone else, was it someone in their supply chain that experienced a ransomware that supports that part of the business? And if it was, then it might have not just been Mark Spencer. So this might be just an internal thing. So there's that there. But that's not where it ends. South Korean Telecom, SK Telecom, said its systems were recently breached, and the company is investigating to determine what customer data was leaked. SK Telecom is South Korea's largest wireless carrier. It has tens of millions of subscribers and holds roughly half of the local market. The company revealing in a Korean language statement posted on its website that it detected an intrusion on April 19th. The investigation showed that the attackers deployed malware and managed to obtain personal information belonging to some customers. Following the incident, SK Telecom is offering customers a free SIM protection service designed to prevent SIM swapping attacks, which suggests that leaked data could be leveraged for such activities. That's a Chinese MO around SIM swapping, and so is North Koreans. The investigation into the incident is ongoing, and the Korean Internet Security Agency, CISO, has been notified. So we know telecom companies in the U.S. were targeted. That was more China related, and that was more specific individuals in cyber espionage. Here, this seems to be more of a data breach, potentially by the North Korean and the Chinese to try and destabilize South Korea altogether. That could be a possibility there as well. We'll continue with Lemonade sending notification letters to around 190,000 people after their driver's license number were transmitted unencrypted, according to a regulatory filing by the company. The company said a technical issue in its online application process for car insurance led to the exposure of data in an application in essentially an API call to a third-party data provider. According to the April 9th filing with the SEC, as part of the online application process, certain information is sent between a server and a user's browser, and this data is used to generate the insurance quotes. Lemonade said it learned of the issue on March 14th, said the exposure likely lasted from April of 2023 through March of 2024, according to a filing with the California Attorney General. They're saying none of the information were compromised, but apparently they saw some activity on that API, and now they're having to notify people that the only unencrypted part of that data is their driver's license number, which does require notification at a scale of 190,000 victims. So there's that there. Teachers, thousands of students, teachers, and administrators in Baltimore City public school systems are now being impacted and notified that the ransomware attack in February did impact their personal information. The breach notice published yesterday's warning that the cyber incident on February 13th exposed certain IT systems within the network. The statement said that the investigation revealed certain documents may have been compromised by criminal actors, which contain information belonging to some current and former employees, volunteers, and even contractors, as well as files related to less than 1.5% of their student population. They didn't say how many people were affected by the letter. That explained that 1.5% of the current public school population in Baltimore County or Baltimore City is around 1,150 students. So there's that there. We'll see exactly what this actually means. Obviously, they went through a ransomware incident in February. We talked about it here on the show. So now we're starting to see, again, results. These things continue to come through, and this is just the standard operating procedure. We don't know how they got in. We don't know all the details, and you'd always hope, like in a breach notification, that there'd be some of that there, but it's not. So we have that to contend with. Microsoft is touting what it's calling the largest cybersecurity engineering project in history. Whoa. Are you ready for this one? So Microsoft 18 months ago rolled out the Secure Future Initiative in response to the breach that happened at Microsoft and a scathing U.S. government report that followed. If you missed that, those were very entertaining episodes you can watch. Microsoft security chief Charlie Bell said that 5 of the program's 28 objectives are near completion and 11 others have made significant progress. In addition to the headline fix to put all Microsoft account and Entra ID token signing keys and hardware security modules or Azure Confidential Virtual Machines, Bell said that more than 90% of Microsoft's internal productivity accounts have moved to phishing-resistant MFA, and that 90% of the first-party identity tokens are validated through a newly hardened software development kit. So they've launched a new SDK for that. They've applied new defense in-depth protections in response to the Red Team research and assessment. They've migrated the MSA signing service to Azure Confidential VMs and are migrating Entra ID signing service to the same. He noted that each of these improvements will help mitigate the attack vectors that are believed to have caused the Chinese APT attack on Microsoft. Microsoft has publicly blamed the incident on a crash dump stolen from a hacked engineer's corporate account. The crash dump, which dated back to April of 2021, contained a Microsoft account consumer key that was used to forge tokens and break into OWA and Outlook.com. On the architecture side, they've purged 6.3 million dormant Azure tenants to protect cloud tenants and isolate production systems. Microsoft also reported the migration of 88% of active resources into Azure Resource Manager for tighter policy enforcement and the segmenting of 4.4 million managed identities so they can authenticate only from approved network location. The Secure Future Initiative was rolled out in November of 2023 to deliver with the promise to deliver faster cloud patches, better management of identity, signing keys, and a commitment to ship software with higher default security bar. So they're bragging. We'll see how long that lasts. I mean, I'm hoping they've built some sort of real hardening to the Microsoft ecosystem. I think that's good since so many enterprises use Microsoft. So we'll put that there. A proof of concept attack called Cookie Byte is using browser extension to steal browser session cookies from the Azure Entra ID to bypass MFA protections and maintain access to cloud services like Microsoft 365, Outlooks, and Teams. So how does this lie with what they just talked about? So they say MFA resistant, but if you're bypassing MFA security token by stealing session cookies, it doesn't matter what MFA you use. They stole the session cookie, which is how MFA is authenticated on the browser level. So that's still something that Microsoft hasn't solved yet. And I don't know if someone has. If they have, please comment, let me know below. I'd love to actually explore if someone's actually able to stop the hijacking of a session cookie. Unless you're using like browser security, that might be the only thing I can think about off the top of my head here. This attack was devised by Varonis security researchers who shared the proof of concept method, including a malicious and legitimate Chrome extension. However, stealing session cookies is not novel. Info stealers and adversary in the middle phishing attacks commonly target them. So the cookie attack consists of a malicious Chrome extension that acts as an info stealer. It targets the EST auth and the EST auth persistent cookies in Azure Entra ID. And that's in Microsoft's cloud-based identity. That's Active Directory. They've renamed it Entra ID. I know. We could complain in the notes, please, in the comments. Sorry. So EST auth is a transient session cookie that indicates the user is authenticated and has completed MFA. It'll remain valid for up to 24 hours and expires when the app is closed. EST auth persistent is the persistent version of the session cookie created when users opt out to stay signed in or when Azure applies to the KMSI policy, keeping it valid for 90 days. So there's that there. So this is, again, another way to steal it. Nothing novel, but it's there. You got to defend it. Browser extension, maybe browser security. That might be the only thing I could think about is if it's browser, if they're stealing it through a bad browser extension, then you want to have browser security deployed on your endpoints. And so that way you can stop that extension from even functioning. And then you essentially eliminate that threat vector for now. A domain control validation vulnerability has resulted in SSL.com wrongly issuing nearly a dozen digital certificate for 7 legitimate domains. They're now pulling those back. So you can actually see that's becoming more and more of an issue in rolling out certificates. We saw DigiCert go through it now, SSL.com. Russia is attempting cyber sabotage attacks against the Dutch critical infrastructure. Russian state-sponsored attackers have attempted to sabotage Dutch critical infrastructure in attacks this year and last year, according to the Dutch Military Intelligence and Security Services' annual public report. Although the impact was said to be minimal, last year's incident appeared to be the first time that a group like this has carried out a cyber sabotage attack against such a control system in the Netherlands. The incident was not detailed further in the MIVD public annual report, but marks an uptick in activity since 2023 when Hans de Vries, then director of the country's National Cybersecurity Center and now head of the EU Cybersecurity Agency, told Recorded Future the Netherlands was not observing attacks directly targeting its own infrastructure. That's either changed or he lied. Take your pick. I don't believe it. I think Russia's been targeting critical NATO infrastructure and EU infrastructure since the invasion of Ukraine in order to weaken its support and in order to kind of, take shots across the bow. Obviously, the response to cyber attacks is not the same as kinetic types of attacks. So that's why they continue to pick it. And until that diplomacy changes, that's going to be the scenario that continues to happen here with the Russians. Russia, on the other hand, is also suspected of aggressively targeting individuals and organizations with ties to Ukraine and human rights with an aim to gain unauthorized access to Microsoft 365 accounts since March of last month. The highly targeted social engineering operation per Velocity is a shift from previously documented attacks that leverage a technique known as device code phishing to achieve the same goals, indicating Russian adversaries are actively refining their tradecraft. You wouldn't expect any different. The recently observed attacks rely heavily on one-on-one interaction with the target, as the threat actor must convince them to click a link and send back a Microsoft-generated code. According to Charlie Gartner, Josh Duke, Matthew Meltzer, Sean Cosell, Stephen Adair, and Tom Lancaster, in an exhaustive report, 2 different threat clusters tracked as UTA 0352 and UTA 0355 are assessed to be behind the attack, although they might be related to APT 29. And that hasn't been ruled out either. The largest set of attacks is characterized by the use of a new technique aimed at abusing legitimate Microsoft OAuth 2.0 authentication workflows. The threat actors impersonate officials from various European nations, have been found to take advantage of a compromised Ukrainian government account, at least in one case, to trick victims into providing a Microsoft-generated OAuth code to take control of their accounts. And people do that no matter what you do, no matter how much training you put them through. All it takes is one good phone call, and it all goes away. It all goes away. There's that for all of y'all there. All right, quick wrap up here. The ActiveMail zero-day remote code execution vulnerability is being actively exploited in attacks on large organizations in Japan. ActiveMail is a web-based email client initially by Transware and later acquired by Quaitilla. Both are Japanese companies. It's not widely used worldwide like Gmail or Outlook. Active is often used as a groupware component in Japanese language environments for large corporations, universities, government agencies, and banks. According to the vendor, Active is used in over 2,200 organizations, boasting over 11 million accounts, making it a significant player in the country's webmail market. Late last week, Quaitilla released a security bulletin about a stack-based buffer overflow vulnerability tracked as CV 2025-4259 or 9er, impacting all versions of Actives up to and including to build info 6.60.05.008561 on all supported OS platforms. So they're asking everyone to patch that up. And MITRE has officially unveiled the Defend CAD tool as part of their Defend 1.0 release. This new cyber attack defense, also known as CAD, is designed to transform how we model, analyze, and respond to cybersecurity threats by offering a structured, knowledge-based approach to cybersecurity scenario creation. Traditionally, would build these on PowerPoint or Visio. However, the CAD tool provides a structured framework for knowledge representation, allowing security teams to build a more comprehensive and actionable scenarios for those attack and defend sectors. So it's a knowledge-based approach to cybersecurity. You should go and check it out. It'll be absolutely, I haven't looked at it yet. Again, saw it just right before the show. Haven't had a chance to play with it. I will post a video on it later, probably this week or next week at some point. All right. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, live with all the latest and greatest. Until then, thank you all for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe. Go check out CyberHubPodcast.com for all the latest. And most importantly, y'all, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.